I'm Mike Smith, and you're watching The Harbor. One thing that's so inspiring about today's youth is their desire to change the world. Sometimes our ideas are so big, we don't know where to start. Even the first step can seem so intimidating. When I was in high school, I was the same way. I had all these massive ideas and big things that I was gonna do to leave my impact on this world, but I didn't know where to start. You know, my senior year of high school, I really wanted to do something incredible, but I just didn't know how. I didn't know where to start. You know, I came to school every morning at 6 o'clock to play basketball. But one morning, walking through the halls on my way to the gym, I walked past the freshman hallway. I looked over and I just saw something I hadn't seen before. There was this little freshman kid just sitting there in the halls, hanging out by himself. You know, and as I walked past him, I looked at this kid and I realized I knew who he was. It was this kid from our town named Calvin. And Calvin was just different. He had a different home life than most of us. You know, he didn't have the most money. He was one of those kind of troubled kids in a small town, and I knew who he was, and I walked past him, and my first thought when I walked past that kid was, man, like, I would hate to be like that kid. And I just walked by. I grabbed my headphones, I walked back past that kid, walked into the gym. When I got into the gym, I stood there with my basketball, and instead of thinking about, you know, working out, all I could think about was this kid just sitting there in the halls all by himself. I started to think to myself, man, am I really too cool to say hi to this kid? Like, I'm so important that I just have to walk past him. And I honestly got that feeling in my stomach where I just kind of felt pathetic. I felt guilty for just walking by this kid and not saying hello. So I made a commitment right there. I said, this is my first step. This is what I'm gonna do. This kid is gonna be my focus for my senior year of high school. So the next day I got to school and I saw that kid sitting in the halls. I walked up to him, I put my hand out to him, and I just introduced myself and said, hey man, like, sorry I walked past you yesterday, but I'm going to the gym to play ball. You should come with me. And he looked at me and he smiled and he said no. He wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. And I remember being so frustrated that he told me no, that he didn't want to hang out with me. And I did the last thing on the planet I wanted to do, which was go home and ask my mom. You know, it's real humbling sitting your mom down as a 17-year-old boy in high school and trying to explain to her that somebody doesn't want to be your friend and somebody doesn't want to talk to you. And I began to explain who Calvin was and what he was like, and I didn't understand why this kid didn't want to be my friend. And my mom looked at me and she basically explained that I wasn't the kind of person that a lot of people wanted to be around. She told me I was selfish. She told me I was arrogant. She told me I wasn't, you know, that kind of a person. And she basically helped enlighten me to this idea that if I wanted to change the world, I had to change myself first. And it kind of hit me. I was like, this isn't gonna be some easy little fairy tale that happens like that. Like, it's gonna take a lot of work just for me to build this kid's trust. But I didn't give up. He told me no day 2, he told me no day 3, he told me no day 4, and it took a couple weeks of continuing to go back before this kid finally believed enough that I wanted to just be nice to him and I wanted to be his friend. And it was the first time he just finally came to the gym and played basketball with me. And a beautiful friendship formed, and he became a huge part of my senior year. When I look back at my senior year of high school, the most important thing that I did was befriend Calvin. You know, when you're a senior and you're graduating high school, you're cleaning out your locker, you're thinking about, you know, all the things that you've done, but that chapter in your life is closed and you're moving forward. Your last day is a pretty memorable day. And as I was cleaning out my locker, getting ready to leave my school, thinking about the things we'd accomplished, I walked out and my guidance counselor stopped me. She said, Calvin's in the library, he's crying, he's super upset. Can you please grab your teammates and your friends and go talk to him? And you see, I thought somebody'd made fun of him or somebody'd picked on him. But I looked at this kid sitting there, and when I asked him what had happened, he explained to me that he thought because we were leaving, because our senior class was moving on, Calvin thought it was over. He thought he was gonna go back to this kid that sat by himself, that didn't have friends and wasn't involved anymore. And the thing that broke my heart so bad that day is Calvin had no idea how special he was to me. He had no clue how important he was to me. You see, I thought I was gonna help Calvin. You know, I thought by changing my perspective and helping this Calvin kid, I was gonna, make his life better. But what really happened is Calvin changed me. Calvin changed my perspective. He changed my world. Calvin's the reason that when I got out of high school, I went to college and I decided to go into nonprofit work. I started my first nonprofit, helping at-risk youth and kids that were on the fringe because of Calvin. And that first nonprofit grew into a second nonprofit. And the reason that happened is because of Calvin. And you see, now my reach today is in the millions and millions of kids. I have a network of kids all across the world that I get to have an impact on. But the reason those things exist today is because in high school, I helped one kid. This idea of changing the world isn't this massive thing. Changing the world is changing the people around you. You want to feed starving people? There are starving people at your school. You want to help or save the homeless? And there are homeless kids at your school. We have these ideas of wanting to change the world. Well, if you want to change the world, you've got to change your world.